What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? You are on the sidelines with the Sideline Guys. And today I am joined for a very special NBA edition of the show. And of course, it's only right that I'm joined by my man, the gentleman with the largest brain in the South Hemisphere of the United States, a man that uses something that many people don't naturally have, something that many people spend lifetimes trying to acquire, and that is logic. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got my guy, the GOAT from the South, Sebastian, aka Logic. How's it going, brother?
It's going good, man. It's going good. Thanks. It's good to be back. Good to have my team in the finals. The toughest road out of the two teams to get there, but we got there, bro. It's good. It's good.
I love it. I'm going to be real with you. Even though we have some beef, some grievances to air out here, I think it is appropriate for me to say that I am happy for you. I'm happy that at least you are involved in this finals. And then, of course, there's someone that isn't involved in this episode that I think is very important right off the top that we mentioned. Derek, I think it's an indictment on how you feel on this series, that you're nowhere to be found, Derek. So get your shit together, boy. We coming for you. But with all that being said, I think it's only right that we remind the folks where to find this awesome content that we continue delivering to your ear holes. And that is at OTS Media Co. on YouTube and OTS Media on all social media platforms. Make sure that you're following the brand so that you never miss our awesome sports and lifestyle shows. But with all the pleasantries out the way, Logic, why don't you let the people know where they can find you and your awesome musings?
All right, so you guys can find me at Logical Gaming with 2 L's at the end of Logical, because with 1 L was taken. It's Logical Gaming on YouTube. I posted a video last month. So there'll be another video coming out soonest, hopefully. Don't know what it's going to be over yet, but probably going to be over NBA stuff, some reactions to that probably. So look forward to that. And I think that's about it though for now. I'm really just on that still. I don't really use my Instagram, so I don't hand it out because I really can use it. So
whatever you want the people to find, goddammit. So make sure you're following him over there on YouTube. And also make sure, before we get out of here, that you're following me at Chris Negron _ on Instagram, as well as Negron MMA on TikTok and Twitter. So you can see all of the awesome things I've got coming towards your way. But with all that being said, let's get right into this because we got a lot to talk about right off the top. Obviously, I'm an OKC fan, so it's only right that we talk about your second round series and move on from there. I'm going to talk and then I'm going to let you talk, all right? Because obviously there's some pain to be levied here, all right? This is now the...
You can I will ingratiate you with the ability to air out your grievances.
Thank you, brother. So I think it's important to speak right off the top and say, defensively, nobody's probably aware of what you guys bring to the table more so than I am. I feel like a lot of people, myself included, almost downplayed a lot my team's offense because of how effective you guys were down the stretch in those games. Even in games where we were ahead by double digits, kept cutting things close with your defense, and then eventually your offense has been able to shine through. I think it's a real testament to what you guys have done. Obviously, acquiring Gafford mid-season and the ways you guys built on your team and built on your scheme since then. Obviously, Lively very much so in the mix and making things very difficult for anyone interested in driving. The first thing I wanted to ask you, right, because we're going to obviously talk about my pain a little bit more, but I think it's important for the context of the finals to start here. Was this, as a fan, to see the evolution of this team's defense, did this come as a surprise to you? Is this something that you were reinvigorated by come playoff time, where you're like, wow, like this is a different level of defense than I've seen throughout the year? Or is this just par for the course and we just weren't paying attention? Logic.
Well, so there's multiple ways you can go about it. So, but how I'm going to focus it is the same way everybody should be focusing on the Mavs this year, is post-trade deadline, because these are two entirely different teams. Let's get that straight. They are not the same team anymore once the trade deadline passed. And I told everybody last time I was here that the Mavs can make a deep run and possibly make the finals. I called, and you know that I called Mavs in 6 on the Clippers. I called Mavs in 6 against your OKC. And I also love how you forgot to mention the father of the Thunder, which is PJ Washington. He just cooked all that series. Which, to be fair, I mean, I'm just giving you some shit because I have to give you some shit. But defensively, it was about as I expected for the most part. I knew Gafford, what he brought to us was going to be huge. Him and Derek Lively give me like Tyson Chandler vibes when he was with the Mavs in 2011. That energy, that defensive energy that the Mavs didn't have before Tyson Chandler got there. And the fact that Tyson Chandler is actually mentoring Derek Lively is huge for us because he knows what it takes to win, and he knows how to play as a big man and how a big man should play in the NBA, in my opinion, which is old school physical, while staying out of foul trouble, of course. I will say though, I'm a bit surprised that everybody's downplaying Derek Jones Jr.'s impact defensively, just because he's 6'7", but he has a 7-foot wingspan. People forget like that adds up, like that helps us guard people like Chet in that series, and helps us guard people like Cat, because he's another guy that he might not look tall, but he has the wingspan to guard those people, those 7-footers. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually on Porzingis a little bit just to see how that works in Game 1 tomorrow night.
I love that. And we're gonna hop right back into Game 1. I have a lot more questions to ask you, but I love the way you framed this because I couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, the bigs are a huge part of what you guys are able to accomplish on the interior, but I felt in my series, and I think things changed obviously as you went on to face Minnesota. But in my series, I thought there was a real conscious effort of really shutting down the paint and making sure that not only are we not able to get in, but also that the perimeter with this quasi-man, quasi-zone, the perimeter is also covered too, right? So there was a lot of different times where my Thunder, best three-point shooting team in the league throughout the regular season, was having such a hard time finding quality shots because it felt like literally everything we were trying was just getting shut down lane after lane. And we even tried for a long stretch of that series to keep things on the outside, and even that wasn't working for us. So how do you feel like your perimeter players have really played off of guys like Gafford and Lively shutting down the paint?
Oh, I think they've just been able to do their thing for the most part. Obviously, I would have liked some more open looks being made that we've had, but I think that the ability that they have just to be able to get both on the offensive end for Lively and the defensive end for Gafford, and both of their defensive shot blocking capabilities is huge for us. And they don't get in foul trouble, which again is very huge in the postseason. People seem to forget that, and then it ends up with stuff happening like with you guys. Lou Dort kept getting in foul trouble, but he was going to get in foul trouble. Luka is known for that. Kyrie can also do that. Shea didn't really get in foul trouble because he knows how to not get in foul trouble. Who else? Williams, not Jalen, the other Jalen. Why do they both have the same name except for one letter? It's so annoying because I can't talk about them without getting them mixed up.
Hey, that's Jalen Williams, and the other one is J-Dub.
Okay, sure. Whatever. I'm not going to remember that because I already don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, I love that because it's so funny, but it's so hard to differentiate in my mind and when I'm talking about them. But you know who I'm talking about. I'm sure you all are Thunder fans. But I was surprised that I'm like, we can take them 6, but if we lose Game 6, we're not beating them in 7. Because I don't think the Mavs are built to go 7 against anybody, which sounds a little like heresy, but it's really not. Because we have some guys with experience, but we also have 2 guys who were with trash teams for most of their career. Well, actually all of their career. Pretty sure. I don't think the Bulls were good when they had Daniel Gafford. No. Yeah, 2 guys who were really good, but were in bad situations their entire career until they got to Dallas, who had no playoff experience. The only ones on our team that had playoff experience that have played for us is Dante Exum. I think when he was with the Jazz. I don't know if they made it with him. 2017. Yeah, I think they made the playoffs that year. And then Luka, obviously, and Kyrie, obviously. But other than that, there's not much finals experience. Obviously, I'm missing some guys. I'm not going to count Dwight Powell. But Maxi Kleber obviously has experience from like the last few seasons with us. But like people like that. But there's not a lot of experience enough to go 7 games, and not a lot of guys who have that 7-game experience. So they're built for going 6 though easily. And they definitely play better. They play better in the playoffs at home, I would say, than on the road. But and it helps in that game 6 environment. So
yeah, I couldn't agree with that more, man. I think what really surprised me in that series was you guys' defense. I think obviously we expect you guys' offense to be dynamite, especially with those 2 guys you mentioned, Luka and Kyrie, leading the helm. But yeah, nobody expected the second coming of goddamn fucking Reggie Miller out there in PJ Washington, just splashing threes from the corner every single, literally all the time. I'm like, how does he find the fucking corner? And it's constant. Wasn't there as much in the Minnesota series. So excited to see how things look against Boston and see who's going to be that guy for you, because it feels like there's a lot of different guys that can contribute in that way. And there's a lot of guys you could argue still haven't even gotten that shot really to put their mark on some of these games, which should be exciting to see if that's the case during the finals. But I'm going to put a little bow on my Thunder run by saying I take pride in the fact that we gave you guys a harder series in Minnesota. Obviously, you could argue that Minnesota really busted their ass and spent all their gas on going 7 games with Denver, and that's a very logical argument. But at the same time, I definitely feel that matchup-wise, like you said, it was a tough series. It was not an easy 6 games. You can argue we should have, no matter what, been in a 7-game series, given that y'all came back on a fucking 20-point lead that we had. So that's in my opinion is the big X factor for the finals, right? And we'll get there when we get there. So let me shut that off. I'll stop by saying, as a Thunder fan, I have a lot of things to look forward to, right? I think we stepped up big time. Obviously, no one expected us to be here. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't expect us to be here. I thought we were going to be a top 4 team for sure, but I didn't think we were going to be the top seed. Obviously, it doesn't mean shit when you lose in the second round, but hey, we lost to the team that made it to the finals, right? So it gives you a little bit of something to celebrate in my sick mind. But I got to ask you, all things considered, hindsight 2020, do you agree with me that was the hardest series? And then looking ahead, preview this matchup against the Boston Celtics for me. How are you feeling about this series in particular, and what are some of the matchups that you're keying in on?
Well, so I do want to say the Thunder matchup so far has been the hardest matchup-wise for the Mavs, just because you have a guy like Lou Dort who's really good who has the ability to guard Luka as much as anybody possibly can, because Luka's always going to get his, but he's going to make it difficult. And the fact that we had to go 6 against y'all really helped in the series against Minnesota, because it gave us that extra day off that they didn't get. So I definitely agree that the Timberwolves looked gassed. Like Ant looked gassed in game 1 and game 2. There's no way you can deny it. He was not himself. I feel like he was not 100% that series just because he was tired. Cat pulled a cat. Like he's an 82 game player. He is not a 16 game player. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. He's regular season, not postseason. That conference finals just showed it, bro. Like he disappeared entirely for that series. And it was not good. It wasn't good. The one game they won, he did good, but him and Ant, Ant's either gonna leave or Cat's gonna get traded at some point. And then as for the finals, I think I've talked about this a lot. I think it's gonna be the Mavs in 6. I believe it has to be Mavs in 6 for the Mavs to win. I will be amazed. I think they'll split the game 1 and game 2. I think game 1 will go to the Celtics, And then game 2 will go to Dallas, and then back at home they'll split, and then Dallas. I think the reason they're going to split is because Jason Kidd's been really great this postseason at adjusting, and the Mavs haven't lost a game 2 all postseason, and they've only won game 1 under Jason Kidd since he got there, which was the conference finals. And then after that, I think it's going to be harder because it's going to be personnel-wise. So if you want to go personnel, it would be KP on – I would like to see KP on, again, Derrick Jones Jr., and I think Lively's also going to spend time guarding him. And then it's going to be Gafford on Horford. It's going to be that matchup. I think is the best ideal matchup. And then it's going to be PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. on Tatum, and the other one. And then it's going to be Luka guarded by Drew Holiday. Ideally for the Celtics, it has to be Drew Holiday on Luka. Otherwise, they're not going to win. There's no way that Derek White and Jason Tatum, anyone else on the Celtics, can guard Luka effectively enough like Drew Holiday can. I'm sorry to say it. That's just facts. Because Drew Holiday has that same type of defensive ability as Lou Dort, but better. And he has that. He's the only one on the Celtics that has a ring. So, and then Kyrie's gonna be guarded mostly by Drew Holiday as well when Luka's on the bench, and Derek White when he comes off the bench. And then it's gonna be Jaylen Brown. Sorry, almost forgot about him. He's gonna be guarded by PJ Washington as well. And then like Tim Hardaway Jr. off the bench. It's going to have to be minutes as well. But I think it's going to come down to the starters, and I like Dallas better in this series just because of the stars.
Ooh, I love it. Coming out hot, goddammit. And I think it's appropriate that we mentioned that when you made the initial prediction, right? I kind of talked you off the ledge, and I'm like, hey, don't be crazy. Don't be a homer. It's fine. And that's literally the finals that we ended up with here. So it feels ridiculous to downplay that and then end up in this scenario. And I got to be honest, bro. Since you've came into my life, right, it's been a blessing. Shout out. But, motherfucker, our teams in different sports have faced each other 3 times in the playoffs, and I am 0-3. And there's nothing that I hate more than this, right? Because I know how it feels to hold something over your head in the draft league community, right? I'm always, hey, I got the edge on you there. Now I'm not even undefeated there either. And you are fucking 0-3, not only in games that are head-to-head, but in games that fucking send my teams home, goddammit. I'm in pain. I hate it. I say all that to say it doesn't feel good to hype you guys up here. I think ultimately this series, if I'm being unbiased, I'm removing all this hatred away. I will say that I do think this series goes 7. In my heart of heart, I think this series goes 7. And I know you said that isn't good for you guys. I think so too. I'm going to be very honest here. Off the rip, my pick has a caveat. And my pick is I'm going with the Boston Celtics in 7 games. I think ultimately what makes the difference here is a guy that you guys are very familiar with, Mr. Tingus Pingus himself. Porzingis needs to step up big time here. And I know that's crazy for someone that hasn't been playing for an extended period of time, hasn't played at all throughout the playoffs. But I think it's important to make it very clear, well, since that first series, I think it's important to make it very clear that if he can contribute, the Celtics are 100% in this series and, in my opinion, should be the favorite. But if we are into game 1 and within the first 8 minutes of the game, Porzingis gets pulled and we're seeing extended minutes from Al Horford, I think that just spells bad things for this team. I think ultimately the longer they can stretch the floor effectively, obviously Al Horford gives them that too, but stretching the floor offensively on top of locking things down defensively, in my opinion, is what's going to give Boston the best chance to keep it close and keep these games relatively offensive, right? Where they're in a position where now they can beat you with their offense. If they're not in that position early and they're playing from behind, and I've been on record to you saying this, I think the Mavs can very well win in 5 games here if specifically Porzingis' impact is not felt. Now, hearing this diatribe, do you agree with me that Porzingis' impact on this series is much bigger than a lot of people are giving it credit for?
Oh no, it's 100% probably the biggest X factor. I think one of the most interesting things to actually note on your little caveat to cover you behind, I guess, in case you're wrong. So I'm just saying, is that the fact that he is playing in game one, he's been cleared to play, but he hasn't played in eight games. It's like what, 3 weeks? 4 weeks, give or take, right? God, it's been so long. If the Mavs come at him and be physical with him, Kristaps doesn't like people getting physical on him. That's where he struggles. So if the Mavs be physical against Porzingis every time he has the ball, doesn't matter where, as long as they don't foul him, I think that will help them in game one a lot. I think how physical the Mavs are with Porzingis, and how well they guard. I want to say Tatum and Brown, but I don't think Tatum's the guy for them. You know this. I've said this to you so many times. I think Tatum's overrated, just because he hasn't gotten it done yet. The man didn't even win Eastern Conference Finals MVP on his own team. I'm just saying he hasn't had a signature game.
Listen. I got to talk you off a ledge here, bro. This is crazy. Okay? I get it. You can feel a certain way about Jaylen Brown's role on this team and what that means. But to act like Jason Tatum is some pedestrian out there, when in my opinion, yes, he hasn't gotten those accolades, right? But he has made it with his team to the Eastern Conference Finals more than your team has made it to the Western Conference Finals, and has also made it to the finals as most recently in 2022, that compared to you guys, right? Since that early on run with back in the days with my guy Dirk, number 41. I got to remember that for next time. But
I thought it was 14.
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck I was on with that one. But how do you feel for this series in particular, right? Offensively, let's switch gears a little bit here. Offensively, who do you think has the biggest potential to be that sleeper on the Mavs? The guy that necessarily hasn't really been the big talk of the previous series, but might find a way to contribute big time here in the finals.
That's tough. I think. I think it's got to be PJ Washington, just because he has been that third guy for us on the perimeter. And he can finish as well. But I feel like it's also kind of a cheap answer because he's been that guy before, and how you worded the question was in the previous series. I think Gavrich's another guy, and Lively as well. Lively also did not miss his shot last series. He was 16 for 16 against the number one defensive team. And I think it's important to note that the Celtics are the fourth best defensive team at the end of the season. And I think that will probably matter here. But I think it's got to be. I think I'm going to have to go with PJ Washington just because of his ability to help us space the floor and make those big shots like he did in previous two series. Game 5 against Minnesota and all the games against you. So
I love it. And now looking at the Celtics juggernaut of an offense, I'm the guy that made the Celtics pick, right? And I think that's where ultimately they win this series, especially at the three-point line. Obviously, was the leader in attempts throughout the year as well as in these playoffs. And I think that's important here because obviously having the strength and the wherewithal to be able to get the shots up, but most importantly, to be able to hit those down the stretch as the defense continues to lock in on that paint. Those shots need to be going down in order for the Celtics to be humming the way that they do. So I think offensively, the Celtics have a pretty good matchup on you guys in that way because, yes, you guys have two people that can create huge mismatches. But in my opinion, so do the Celtics. I think between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, in my opinion, I think what you get from those guys is very arguably equal to what is given between Luka and Kyrie. As far as the scoring goes, as far as facilitating, I think you guys get that edge as far as that duo. And ultimately, you're going to need it, right? Because, in my opinion, your team needs the help to score a lot more than the Celtics do as far as being deeper and having vets in those roles, right? Guys like Drew Holiday, who gets overlooked, which is crazy to me, their biggest offseason acquisition, in my opinion, and has been looking phenomenal, obviously on the defensive end, but also offensively. The bald Mamba, Derek White, absolutely, in my opinion, deserved to be an all-star this year. Just repping it for us bald folks, goddammit. Someone had to do it. And you love to see it, right? You got to embrace it. You can't just, you could pop the lid on like I do, right? But you gotta let it go, right? When you see the signs, you can't hold on for dear life, and that's what I think was holding Derek White back these last couple of years. And once he freed his mind, he's just been going crazy, especially from 3-point land, but also just as a offensive facilitator too. I think he doesn't get the credit he deserves this year for the jump he made offensively, and all the while probably being the most impactful defensive player too, right? So all huge things to consider, and these are people that are technically on the back burner when you're looking at the matchups on the spreadsheet. So I like the Celtics in this series for that reason. I don't like the Celtics in this series for the following reasons. I think obviously we have seen throughout this postseason, regardless of how easy the run may have been for the Celtics, we have seen games where there has been either a lapse of concentration or an outright waving of the white flag, right? Something that I think you and I talk a lot about in the last couple of series because it's a lot more prevalent than people would imagine in playoff basketball. But I think the Celtics can find themselves in scenarios where they're willing to lay down and show up for the next game instead of continuing to fight. And I know firsthand, being in the trenches against you guys, man, no lead is safe, and ultimately no momentum is finite in a matchup like this against Dallas. So how do you think Dallas can really punch the Celtics in the mouth here, take advantage early, and sort of not give up that lead as this series progresses?
I think it comes back to how physical they play with Porzingis coming off that injury. If they can bother him, they'll have a better chance in the series, as well as making their shots. If Lucas, I think Charles Barkley said it perfectly. When Luka's sharing the ball and not in isolation, the Mavs are at their best. Regardless of if they're up or down, they will always be in the game. As long as Luka's not in isolation, dribbling the ball 55 times a game on one possession. I think if the Mavs are able to pass the ball more effectively and thread the needle against that tight defense, those two defensive guards, in my opinion, both had a case for I don't know if Derek White made all NBA defense. Was he first, second team?
I'll check on that.
Yeah, I think they both deserved it. Either way, I think they both had a case for first defensive team as the guard spot. And then other than that, though, it's I think it has to be how much they can affect Porzingis mentally, because once you get into him physically, you kind of affect his mind. I would know firsthand. I've seen him play for us against the Clippers series post COVID, and once they got physical with him, he was off. And I don't know if that's more because he was younger then, you know what I mean? Like he was still adjusting to it. But I feel like that's another issue that we haven't even gotten into yet, which is fun. But I think that's
very, very quickly. Both of those guys were second team all defense this year.
Okay. Well, who was first? Who was first at the guards?
That's a great question. I wasn't looking for that. So the full NBA all defensive team, a little different because remember this year they changed it with forwards and eligibility. So we've got Rudy Gobert, Victor Wembanyama, Bam Adebayo, Herb Jones, and Anthony Davis are our first team all defense.
Okay, I would have put Drew over Herb easily, in my mind.
Herb deserves the spot despite the team success, but
exactly.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. They're swappable, but I think it makes sense for Drew because at that point it's team success, which one leads to more team success, and I think that's Drew Holiday, and that is it. Anyway, regardless, I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good series either way. I think this is the series that the finals have needed for a while. I do believe it can go 7 games. It probably will go 7, but I'm very interested in to see if it goes 7 because I think we actually match up better than people are giving us credit for in this series. I think people are just writing us down because of our lack of perimeter defense. I recall Derrick Jones Jr. making a huge perimeter block against y'all. I strictly remember Derek Lively doing the same thing against the Timberwolves last series in, I believe, Game 5. Might have been Game 4. I don't remember which. I think it was Game 5. And then somebody else had another one against the Timberwolves. So we can go to the perimeter pretty effectively, and it shows. Like we were able to shut down Anthony, which was actually pretty good at shooting perimeter threes. I think at about the same rate as Jason Tatum, if not slightly better. And then guys as well who like Shea can also knock down some threes. The Jalen Williams who can shoot. Don't remember which one that is again because I get the names confused.
J-Dub.
J-Dub's the shooter. Okay, J-Dub's the shooter. Good to know. That might help me remember. That's why I'm not knocking them. It's just their names confuse me. You can't get me mad at me for that. But I feel like the Mavs' biggest issue is they tend to get, and it showed in the last series, right? This is why Kyle Anderson was so huge for the Timberwolves, because we didn't guard him. So I think the biggest thing for the Mavs is to make sure they actually have a guy on everybody whenever they can, because the Celtics are a better shooting team and the best shooting team that the Mavs will have faced this entire playoffs easily. And that fact is like because they can't afford to leave a Peyton Pritchard open or Sam Hauser especially. We know, especially Sam Hauser, because the last 2 series he's been lights out pretty much when the Celtics needed the bucket. And Peyton Pritchard also can shoot the ball pretty effectively as well. And I think their defense is slightly underrated for the Celtics. Like nobody's talking about. They do all the little things. They're like Derek White Juniors, if you will. They do all the little things. I'm just saying, bro. They have that type of impact. But I think it's going to be close. I think every game should be close. I think the best chance the Celtics have is if they are up significantly is to keep the gas going. Like stomp on the neck, otherwise the Mavs are going to come back. You have to make sure they don't get back up. They don't give them any life, bro. Because we have the personnel, we have the history of doing it. Like the Mavs know they're never out. So
great shouts, man. I agree with that sentiment a lot. I really do think if any team, if you were to tell me right now that the team that went on to win the finals in 2 of the 4 games that they won by more than 15 points, I would tell you the Celtics won. Just because I feel like they have that higher upper bound limit when it comes to offensive output. But I definitely do agree with that sentiment. I think it really all comes down to how the games are approached. Like I feel like this is something I wanted to ask you, and then I'll go into my thoughts on it. But the kind of games that you feel very confident are going to go your way as a Mavs fan, how does that game look like in your imagination?
The games where we're down big?
No. I'm saying in this series, in your mind, the kind of games that you would feel 100% confident that you guys are going to win, how would that game look?
Ideally, we win the tip. I think that's going to be – I think that's actually – no, it's huge. People underestimate how important it is to win the tip-off. That's fourth quarter control. People don't understand that for some reason. That's why I'm like, winning the tip's huge. Regardless of like what level it is, win the tip-off, you have the ball in the fourth quarter. And that's where the Mavs make their impact. That's where the Celtics make their impact. The most is the fourth quarter, especially in this postseason. Ideally, we win tip. We play physical against Porzingis. We get Drew Holiday 2 fouls either at the end of the first quarter, start of the second quarter. Somewhere in between there, we get a mix of fouls on Derek White and Drew Holiday, get them in foul trouble, force like a Peyton Pritchard or a Sam Hauser on a Luka and Kyrie for at least, I want to say 7-ish. No, not 7. I'm going to say 6 minutes in the first half. We're probably going to win the game. I think that's how it has to be. I think the Mavs also, because the Mavs have the same struggle as the Celtics. As you know, we have been up before against y'all and the Timberwolves, I think. No, not against y'all, mostly. A couple times. Blew one lead. We did the same thing against the Clippers. Wasn't there for that game, thank goodness. I went to game 6, not game 4. And we choked huge leads. Like we were up, I think, almost 20 against y'all. I think it was 18, right? Something like that. And then against the Clippers, we were up like 15, close to 20 again. We blew those leads. So we have that same mentality. We have that same problem, I guess. It's kind of a problem, but you still, as long as you win, to my mind. But it's still a problem to give up that lead. But I think the Mavs got better with it against the Timberwolves, whereas the Celtics haven't overcome that issue, and they shouldn't have that issue. They have all this experience, the talent to not have that issue, yet they have the issue. So
I gotta make note of this because it was one of my favorite things to see in the lead up. Joe Mazzulla is an interesting character, right? And I think it was only right when talking about Kyrie Irving, and we're asking, how he feels about the villain role that Kyrie is going to be embracing in this series, and then this guy just all deadpan. He's, we're all a villain in someone's eyes, aren't we? just goes full Joker at the press conference, and I love that moment because regardless of him being kind of cheeky there, I agree with the sentiment. Like I feel that was a bar, but also in relation to that dynamic in this series, how do you think that changes the intent from Kyrie Irving as opposed to previous series in this playoff run?
I think it's going to be his intent's got to be like, I would say he has to play unapologetically apologetic because we all know what happened in Boston, but he has to. Celtics fans are never going to move on. They hold a grudge like nobody else. Everybody knows that. I respect them for it. Good Lord, is it annoying? And I don't mean that in a bad way. It is very much in their benefit, as we have seen in Kyrie's performances against the Celtics since he left, I guess. But he has to move on for that. I know he has. He says he has. Mentally, he has. His game has not. His game needs to move on. So he needs to be unapologetic in how he plays against them. He needs to show them that it's over. He says it's over. He says he's moved on. He said in the press conference that's not who he is anymore. He needs to put his money where his mouth is. Where his game needs to be at is where his words are. So show us that is not who you are when you play like that against Boston. Break the streak. Exercise your demons like Luka did against the Clippers.
Ooh, that's a deep one. I love that. And we already both gave out our predictions. So at this point of the show, I'm kind of just bouncing questions off you here. Just whatever I think will give me the best kind of answers. But I'm really excited to ask you this one in particular because I've been thinking about this for a while now. I don't want to sit here and fucking ride coattails, right? But I think there's a big difference, especially the last 2 years, in how the star players of these two teams are looked at, right? And the future of the league. I think as someone who is a fan of the sport, watching Luka's rise has been insane, but also really inspiring and redefining almost of the way prospects can develop. So I'm curious as a fan of the fucking team and someone who's seen this since, right? He was a babyface assassin and Dirk Nowitzki was still there. How can you as a fan speak on his growth and development in the NBA and where he can go? Because God damn it, there's still so much growth for him to have. And I would genuinely say right now, he's already a generational talent in that way with what he's been able to produce. So what has it been like as a fan to witness him obviously getting drafted, but then really filling the shoes of being the number one guy, not only on this team, but arguably in the league?
Well, so it's funny that you bring this up because I have said for a couple of seasons now to you, basically as long as we've known each other for a couple of years now, a couple of years, right? About almost 3, right? Yeah. That Luka reminds me, and I get a lot of flack when I say this. He reminds me a lot of Michael Jordan. The man will do anything not to lose the game. He is competitive. He is not as fast. I'm not saying I'm not saying he is Michael Jordan. He reminds me of Michael Jordan's mentality. To the nth degree, it is scary. And I know I am only 24, almost 25. So I was not alive when Michael Jordan played, except when he was with the Wizards, and I was too young then. Obviously, I was 3 years old. But I have saw footage of I've seen the documentaries. I have family who watched Michael Jordan play in person against Dallas. It is scary how similar the mentalities are. And Luka has been doing this since he is 13. He is the same age as me, almost a couple months, only a couple months apart. So it makes me feel a little, well, you still, whatever, all those, you still live with your parents, whatever, you know what I mean? Those type of, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because it's the same age. Everybody does that to me. But as for his development, I didn't know a lot about him except he was basically from like the same area of Europe as Dirk. So I already felt good about that. I felt like he was in the best spot for him because of Dirk and Kleba and JJ Barea at the time. I basically called the team the United Nations of the NBA because everybody was basically out of country. I mean, that out of love, obviously. I mean, it was great. And then seeing him with KP, I really thought that would have been at least the conference finals or second round. And they probably would have if not for COVID. I love what I saw from him in COVID because I think I've come to underestimate how tough that is. And because that's awkward. That is significantly awkward to play that I've realized. You're basically playing in an empty gym, but it's a real game and it's not scrimmage. But it's way bigger and it's like you're in an empty arena for a game. And it's awkward. Like that feeling is awkward. It's like you're in a ghost town, I feel like. So but as for the only way he can go is up. And I was looking at earlier. So and I was watching Get Up because I always watch Get Up somehow. I always wake up that early. Mostly for work. So I've been doing that anyway because my brain mindset, once you get into work mindset. But Luka this season, going into the finals, has made history yet again. Go figure. It's Luka making history. It's like LeBron making history. But there's one thing I didn't know about this. I sent this to you. I don't know if you saw it. But when they were talking about how dominant Luka has been this postseason, this man is first in the following categories. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, field goals, 3-point field goals, and free throws. In the postseason, this postseason, he is first. Again, Luka is first in steals. He is actually averaging the most steals out of any player in the finals. On both sides, with almost 2. He's at 1.9. He has 28 steals in this postseason, 489 points, 164 rebounds, 150 assists. He's made 57 threes, which is kind of crazy when you factor in how bad he shot against y'all. Which I expect a similar Luka performance in the finals is what I see against y'all. Maybe slightly better, slightly less. I don't know. It depends on who they put on Luka the most. I think if they have Derek White, who started all the games for the Celtics on Luka, they're going to lose. It's going to be Mavs in 5. They have Luka on them for both home games in Boston. I think it's insane that they would have anyone else. And I know I'm digressing, but for Luka's stats, just as a player, it's insane. So I'll just go over like the briefest example I can of his points. So this is every point average he's had according to ESPN. Because yes, I haven't pulled up. I always got to pull it up. He also has only played 61 or more games, so he's played most of the games. Unlike most players. So his rookie year, he came in. The Mavs didn't make the playoffs. Obviously, they weren't going to. The team was too old. He averaged 21, 6 assists, 8 rebounds, and a steal. Which I actually did not notice. He's averaging a steal for his career, which is insane. Nobody talks about that. And then sophomore year, like what can he do now? He averaged 28. He's actually closer to 29, 28.8. So he averaged 20. I'm going to say 29. I'm going to round up or down every time. So 29, his second year in the league is insane. On 46% shooting and 31. So his big knock at first was his 3-point shooting. Like his first 2 years, he wasn't shooting well. It was like 32, 31. And then he averaged 27 because that's the COVID year, I believe. No, post-COVID year, about. He was averaging 27. Then the year 2 years ago, when they made the conference finals, he was averaging 28. Almost a triple-double, by the way, every year, except the rookie year. Last year he averaged 32. So he went from 28 to 32. And this year he's averaging 34. Again, just regular season. I think what's next, and I'm projecting here based off of that, he could average 35, 10, and 9 next season for stats. And still not get an MVP. It drives me bad, bro, the disrespect.
Dude, I love that you laid this all out because say what you want about bias, say what you want about whatever, the numbers don't fucking lie. And that has been the most staggering thing for me is like you said, not only has he put up numbers that really jump off the stat sheet at you, but also each year it feels like there's one thing that he's adding, right? He's adding another thing to the toolbox each year. And I think the biggest improvement we've seen the last 2 years has been in his defense, man, and what he brings on that side of the ball. My favorite clip, honestly, fuck the season. Fuck the series. My favorite clip of the entire season.
Was the
And
block
this is
shit?
no, fuck you. How dare you? That hurts. It's that play where Luka was guarding. I think it was either Brandon Ingram or Herb Jones, one of the two. But he ends up poking away the ball. He's the first one to touch it.
Right.
Let me explain this. No, let me do it because this is poetic right here, right? So Luka pokes away the ball, and whoever was the ball handler, I don't remember at the time, they actually are the one that touches the ball first after he already poked it out. So he kind of did a gather dribble again, and Luka entirely undercuts his legs, right, as any good defender would in this scenario, right? So he's preventing this now defender from running towards where the ball is going, and then he dives immediately right underneath to grab to secure the steal and the save. And then instead of directly sort of crowding Luka immediately, you could see the defender try to play the passing lane and then doesn't even move, right? Like is mid dive, doesn't even move, and just tosses it behind his head to Kyrie, who is already in perfect position to grab this pass. And then there's a defender at the rim, so they're excited to block that shot. They jump up in the air, and then Kyrie throws it up. And I thought, honestly, at first, when I was first watching it, I thought it was a layup attempt. Like, it was just a terrible layup attempt. And then at that point, it was really which trailer decided to go up there and fucking get it, because Gafford and Derek Jones were there. Derek Jones ends up skying and pumping it down. And that play, in my opinion, really speaks to the crazy levels of talent on this fucking team. Because if you have someone who has all these offensive skills that's willing to do that on defense and let his team take care of the rest, that opens up so much for someone that can already provide all those other things for you, man. Spectacular play, and really, in my opinion, a indictment on the changes Luka has made in the last couple of years defensively.
Yeah. So I do want to point out one thing. I looked up the clip. I found the clip. I looked it up real quick. It was actually against the Jazz, and it was on Colin Sexton. He stole the ball from Colin Sexton, I believe. I'm not going to actually play the clip for background audio purposes. And then he tossed it to he basically fell from like the 3-point line, the right center three. If you're facing the basket, the right center three. And then he just like that. He just does that. He does typical Luka. I'm just like whoop to Kyrie, and then Kyrie just lobs it up, bro, over Lauri Markkanen, clears him, and then Derrick Jones Jr. just dunks it. I'm like, yep. Well, I mean, there's not much you can do when Luka plays like that, and I think the Mavs can. It's gonna be a hot take. I think the Mavs have the potential to sweep if Luka plays locked in every game. Because if he's locked in, he's not complaining up the refs at all. He's not, which, he's been a lot better about that too. So you can't knock him on that anymore, I would say. Yeah, he does it, but I would say he does it to the extent of like almost every other player. He gets knocked on it more because he's Luka and he's known for that.
So he does it a lot more than most, but
he does it a lot, but not as much as like he used to. If that makes it's not close. It's not close anymore, though. You know what I mean? Like it was like for me as a manager, it was like, bro, please stop complaining. It's every play. Now it's like it's every other month. So we're getting there. It feels like it's like he doesn't do it that often, and I feel like he knows not to do it now. Like he's clearly matured. I also love that he called Kyrie old. It's great. And I love that Kyrie's happy. He actually looks happy. I think for the first time in his career. I can't remember the last time this man looked genuinely happy.
His maturation is something that needs to be written about too, right? Because it wasn't long ago that the tweet about that movie and all that was really all anyone was willing to entertain about Kyrie. And obviously the skills were always there no matter what. The Nets series speak to that. But even in this role, I feel like he took another step in his career where at this point, there is none of that ego battles that we saw a lot earlier on in his career. I feel like there'll be games where he's willing to take the facilitator role early. And it almost kind of feels as a fan watching as if excuse my phrasing here, but it's almost like he is kind of taking the first quarters off. Like that's how it comes across, because he's not really trying to get his own shot. He's just trying to get everybody else involved. And then he has the capabilities of taking over as the game continues down the line anyway. And to have two guys like that, right, is a scary threat. Obviously, that maturation in his game and being able to be that second option, but also really in reality, you're a first option. You're just the second of those first options.
It's a 1A. I hate how people say it's a 1B scenario. No, it's a 1A1. It's a 1A 2A, because they both know how to start. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kyrie starts off for the Mavs in the first quarter, going to set the mood, to show them what it takes at this level. Because he's the only one on the Mavs that has a ring outside of Jason Kidd, but Jason Kidd can't play. And show them the mindset, the aggressiveness you need to play in. You need to play these finals games with. Kyrie knows what it takes to win. He's been there before. This is his fourth finals. He knows what it wins. He knows what it takes to win with a guy like Luka. And I actually want to point out that it's kind of funny. So when Kyrie went to the Celtics, that was 7 years ago. Kyrie was 25. LeBron was 32. Kyrie is now 32. And Luka is now 25. And it is it's almost ironic. It's a beautiful irony in that situation, that it shows the growth and it shows the time that it took for that growth. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it is a mirror. It's like an image. It's like you looking in a mirror and you see, like, people are comparing Luka and Kyrie to, like, Luka being LeBron, being the mentor. No, it's like Kyrie is the LeBron in this scenario, where he's showing Luka how to win, and he knows it's his team. Like, he is the guy, whereas LeBron knew he was the guy, but Kyrie was always the next guy. And I think that's what bothered Kyrie, because LeBron came back from the Heat to that team. Kyrie was the guy, and now he's not the guy anymore. I feel like that's what bugged him. That's why he wanted out. And I feel like that slight to Kyrie will always be there for him. But I feel like the fact that it's been 7 years, I think it's really been 6. I want to say Kyrie was there for 2 years. I believe he was for 2 years with the Celtics. I could be wrong. But 6 years removed from that whole, I'm going to re-sign with y'all, doesn't do it. I was actually upset. I was so upset. I'm a guy, I'm a guy like, your words, your bond, you better stick to it if you say this. Because that impacts things, especially in sports, when you say you're going to do something and you don't. I thought that was so weird. And that was a team that also just came from the conference finals. The first conference finals for Jason Tatum, too, I believe. And unironically swept the Pacers that year in the first round. And I think that's a huge thing, though. Is the growth of Kyrie is insane. It is different. I was so afraid. I told all my friends over here in Dallas that I don't want none of that Kyrie bull crap. Trying to not swear as much. New Year's resolution. Struggling with that, obviously. You would know. They don't. Yeah, I'm like, but I also knew, like, Mark Cuban's guy, he's not going to put up with anything, bro. He doesn't. He knows.
I fucking love Mark Cuban. That makes me happier, to be honest, than seeing him celebrate. Because there's some guys I see celebrate and I get fucking annoyed. I'm looking at you, Steve Ballmer. I'm happy for the Clippers.
He is Mark Cuban at home. He is Mark Cuban at home.
But in all honesty, I'm happy for Mark Cuban, man, because to see bro, he looks like Luka, like a child looking at their father, bro. Like there's so much adoration in Mark Cuban's face.
He looks at Luke. Mark looks at Luka like Mufasa looks at Simba, bro. That is literally the mentality. It is there. You can't deny it. And when Mark Cuban sees that type of player, he locks him up, just like he locks up Dirk. And I personally would just want to say thanks to the NBA for letting us get Kyrie Irving on a discount.
Hey, and thanks for the Thunder for letting you figure out Gafford and Live and PJ as well. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Even though I even knew that I even warned you because I'm like, oh, you know how we did against you one time. Luka and Kyrie were both on the court against shots and traded them. We blew you out.
And then remember what I was hitting you with? I'm like, yeah, don't worry though, because we got Gordon Hayward now.
I'm like, yeah, and then you should
see how that fucking went, right? We see how that went.
Yeah, and it's because you shit talk me. Again.
Real quick, I just got to say this because I think it's very important to reiterate. I am still picking the Celtics to win in 7. This has largely been a Dallas Mavericks hypathon, which makes sense. I think the media sort of fares with that as well because in a lot of ways, the Mavs are the team that shouldn't be here, right? The Celtics should have been here since the beginning, and I think they should have been the favorites to win this finals from the beginning as well. And that's what makes this dynamic very interesting to me personally, because I feel like they are the most disrespected finals favorite in recent memory, in my opinion. I feel like a lot of people, since you guys obviously look so good against Minnesota, I honestly see a lot of people picking the Mavs here and just discounting the Celtics. And I think, yes, the route, right, as far as facing harder teams clearly benefits you guys as mentality-wise. And it raises some questions about whether the Celtics can really hum to that finals level that they need to be at. But I think ultimately to assume that a team as deep as they are can't do that in a 7-game series, in my opinion, is just really silly. Obviously, we've seen short game sample sizes where some things fall apart, but that's every team, right? Especially at this level. I think the Celtics, a little bit of a sleeping giant in this series. A lot of people are looking at them as if they need to not fuck this up in order to win. I think, in all honesty, the Mavs need to do a lot of things correctly in order for them to win versus the Celtics having to outperform. Like, I feel like genuinely, like I said before, if you told me the winning team blew out the other team in 2 of those games, I would just assume the Celtics won because despite the Mavs' ability to put up a lot of points, I feel like when it comes to maintaining a lead like that, Celtics have shown that they're able to really put throats on necks when they need to. But the problem is really showing up, right? So I wanted to even things out a little bit and just reiterate, you guys, I'm picking the Celtics here. This is not just a Dallas Mavs tug-a-thon. But ultimately, I think there's a lot more narratives that I think is really exciting for the rest of the season for the Mavs versus the Celtics, because this is the Celtics' real gut check moment, in my opinion, right? They've been here many, many times and had to have taken a little bit of a step back, whether it was with Marcus Smart and having to rearrange that backcourt and add different pieces that eventually didn't work out. And then they had to continue to do that each year until they got to this place. This is the deepest, in my opinion, the Celtics have ever been coming into any playoff series. And they've maintained their health, obviously, Porzingis being out, but having him here is huge too. I think they are the rightful favorites in this matchup, and in my opinion, it's going to take a lot for you guys to take it away. But honestly, it just feels good to have 2 teams that you're excited for the series, right? We're not looking at this like, Mavs in 5 or Celtics in 5, and it's going to be easy. Like, I think this is going to be a real dog fight, and whoever got the biggest heart is going to come away the victor, man. And I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think I do also want to say that the Celtics deserve to be here, but they were the clear favorite throughout the East once playoffs hit. I again said that. If I am under the belief if Jimmy Butler was playing with the Heat, that series would have been their best series so far had Jimmy Butler been playing. And if Tyrese Halliburton didn't get hurt, they would have been going maybe 6 games, maybe. Again, the Pacers series. I think I agree they're deeper, and that helps them a lot. That does help. That depth does help. Does help, especially with foul trouble. But they don't have a lot of big man depth. They have a lot of guard depth. And it's really funny because the Mavs have that opposite problem. They have the big man depth and the forward depth that the Celtics don't really have. Like, they have Horford and they have KP, and then who do they have after that? You know what I mean? Like, they have somebody, but he's not going to be able to do enough. And he hasn't played this entire, probably most of the playoffs, except when KP got hurt. And I'm trying to remember who their guy is, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they don't have enough big man depth, whereas I think the Mavs' biggest chance to win is to get KP frustrated and get in foul trouble. And Horford doesn't get in foul trouble a lot, but if you can get Horford at 2 or 3 fouls, Mavs and KP at 2 or 3 fouls throughout the first half, then the Mavs' chances of winning go way up. Because then the Celtics have to rotate their bigs out consistently, and they can't go back and forth with each other as much. And they have to get those more inexperienced guys in, because that's going to hurt. Because Gafford and Lively can't get guys in foul trouble. And I don't think the Celtics can afford to play hack a Lively in the series, or hack a Gafford, or hack a PJ. They can't afford to just give up fouls. That's not something they can do against this team. I think a big issue for the Celtics, again, is, they don't have that depth that the Celtics have. They don't have that luxury, but I think they make up for it with their talent overall is better, in my opinion. Not necessarily at every position, but overall. They have 2 guys that are going to get theirs regardless of who you have on them, in Luka and Kyrie, and they have the 2 best players in the playoffs in the series in Luka and Kyrie. I think that the Celtics are going to have to be able to handle not fouling. If the Celtics can play defense without fouling multiple, like on Luka and Kyrie, like 3-4 times in a game, on between Drew Holiday and Derek White and Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser and all them, then the Celtics will win the series. That's what it's going to come down to, is the foul trouble for the Celtics. I feel like they can control the foul trouble on their end, they'll win. I think that's going to be the overall story. I think it was what it should be, but it won't be. Obviously, it's going to be focused on the stars and their efforts in this game, or lack thereof. I think that this, in the finals, under the Tatum era, as what you said, the deepest the Celtics ever been in the playoff series, I think that's a lie. In the Tatum era, it's definitely true, but not ever.
That's what I'm talking about, Tatum era.
Yeah. I just want to make sure.
Last 6 years or so. Because they've made multiple runs, but go ahead.
Yeah, but this is definitely, I agree, the deepest the Celtics have ever been with Tatum as the guy for them. I think it's good for that. I think this is their best chance to win, because I don't think they can't afford to retool it again. This is their year if it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to. I'm not saying that they could not be here next season. I think this is their best chance opponent wise. I think this is their best chance health wise. I think this is the perfect time for them to win. But I don't know if they're going to win just because of how they played. Again, against the Pacers, they had scary moments. They've given up leads. They've been down, but they haven't been down significantly to where it was scary. Like, you weren't actually concerned. You were just concerned about when they were going to give up the lead and when they're going to get it back. Because you knew they were always going to get it back because they were the better, deeper team, but you didn't know when that was. And if you don't know when that is, when you're that deep, because you're definitely deeper than the Pacers. I think both teams are deeper than the Pacers. I think both teams are deeper than the Heat were. I think both teams were deeper than the. Oh God, who did they play in the second round? Sorry, hang on. Deeper than the Cavs. I think the Mavs are very similar to the Cavs structure, except the Cavs have more talent at the guard position. I think that's very much the case. I think this series will go 6, maybe 7. It will definitely go at least 6. I hope.
Goddamn. What a series. What a time talking all the good stuff with my guy Logic. This was a blast for me. I hope it was as fun for you. Please remind the people where they can see your awesome YouTube channel, and all the good stuff you have coming up.
Right, yeah. So again, you can find me at Logical Gaming on YouTube. That's LOGICALL Gaming on YouTube. I mostly just post video game content, but I might post some final game reactions, depending on if I'm able to. I'll try to get one out for game one. If not, well, it happens. I'm gonna be staying up for it. So definitely gonna be hopefully watching it with my guy, Chris. So and hopefully it goes well. So I will definitely let him know how I feel after game one. So.
Yes, sir. Good luck. Good luck on your adventures. I hope that now the second finals game that I've seen your fucking team in the last 3 years, I hope you're able to pull this one out. And I probably would have said the same thing to Derek if he was here. But with all that being said, make sure you're following the brand at OTS Media Co. on YouTube and OTS Media on all social media platforms so that you never miss out on all the awesome content we've got coming your way. But thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching the episode. But most importantly, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the fucking finals. So remember, you can't leave the sage at home, baby. Kyrie, sage up that garden for me, baby. We coming. And we will catch you guys next time. Peace.
Good morning.